Welcome to the Mindful Mac podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie. On this podcast, we believe in a positive mindset, self-growth, creativity, improvements, being a good leader, and, well, leaving a legacy. By sharing these stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things by following their dreams and passions, we hope to inspire you to be the best version of yourself, while also providing you with brain food to fuel you on your journey. In today's episode, we have Rajan here with us to share his story. So for the people that are new to you, can you explain what you do, who you are?
So I wear many hats. I'm an entrepreneur. I own one business that I've had since I was 22. And then we're working on a new startup with a bunch of talented people. And also I'm in a band called Generation Zero. And we like making music. We like making things rowdy and just causing a ruckus in Toronto. And yeah, just being creative. I like being creative, whether it's in business or music. And that's just what I do.
Oh, we love it. That's kind of exactly what the podcast is. That's why I reached out to you, because I want us kind of sharing stories to be not just an inspiration, but also showcasing that if you're creative, it doesn't just sit in one area of your life. It kind of explores the rest of kind of all the other fields and things that you do. Can you walk us through your story, your journey to where you are today, to how you got into being in a band to making these custom car parts?
Yeah, so I guess it started when I was a kid. I just started playing with Lego and Hot Wheels, and like when I was a kid, I would always have those bulk packs of Lego. I would never have like those packs that cost like so much money. It's like the Star Wars pack or whatever, or like Indiana Jones pack or whatever. I didn't even have
Legos. Anything that I had, shout out to Nicholas and Leica, or Esther. Most of my or DJ and Daniel, most of my toys came from them.
Okay.
And I don't think, like, just being Filipino, my parents were just like, oh, you get the basic stuff. Yeah, you never got like, oh, the Star Wars
yeah, exactly.
or like the princess one. It was just like, here's the basic thing, and you got to make do of it.
So I always was forced to be creative. Like, oh, I just have these bricks. What can I make from it? And yeah, I think that's what fostered my creativity. I would always think like, what can I make from this? And yeah, and then I've always loved cars growing up. Through high school, I always dreamed of having a cool Miata, which I have now, I guess. And
I don't know what that is, but I'm just gonna nod my head and
it's on my
like
Instagram.
Okay, I'll check it out. You can show me
the
later.
Black car on my Instagram. And like in college, I always had like a vision of like starting a business, making cool car parts. But then there's always a dream beyond that, and I'll get into that later. But out of college, started my own business, making parts for cars, and just started making parts that I needed for myself, and just started selling it to other people, and just grew from there. Just like building parts I want to see in the world, and just releasing it to other people.
So how long? Oh well, yeah. I guess I could ask that question. How long have you been making custom parts?
So since the end of 2014, that's when I started the company. Yeah. And it's been a very up and down journey, which was great. Like a lot of learning experiences, and as long as the trend is going upwards, it doesn't matter if you have downward trajectory
rather than
it's peaks and valleys. But like if you look at the overall trend, it's still up. So like it's important to focus on the overall trend, not like, oh, I'm feeling like shit right
just
now.
that one session or that one dip.
Exactly.
I'm curious. So you said you started in 2014. How did the pandemic affect you and your business and kind of what you do? How did you overcome those difficulties?
It's hard to answer that question because there weren't difficulties.
Really?
It actually helped.
Wow.
Well, e-commerce overall grew, right? Like there were some difficulties, like manufacturing lead times was extended because everyone was backed up. But like it wasn't crazy. Like I wouldn't say I had it as hard as other people.
I think a lot of the businesses, not a lot, almost all of the businesses, when the pandemic hit, everyone went from kind of like not drop shipping, but drop shipping, and everything went online, having apps pick up, but still running that business, and everybody had to get creative to how can I still make my product or my service. Some services are more relevant than others, like the grocery store, but how do I how do I kind of make that experience better for other people in that sense. But that's really cool. The next kind of part that you're involved in, music.
Yeah.
Where did that start? How did the band get together?
That was so spontaneous. So our singer is also a painter.
Okay.
And
like industrial painter or like
no, like
an
artistic
artist?
painter.
Okay.
Yeah. And he made a painting of, I'm sure you're not aware of this logo, but like there's a Rage Against the Machine logo where it's like a fist.
I think I've seen
upwards.
it actually, yeah.
And he did this really cool thing where he painted that fist, but he also painted the members of the band inside the fist.
Oh, that's
it's
sick.
So cool. And he just messaged me on Instagram one day. Oh, and keep in mind we're all like friends since high school.
Okay.
And then this story starts in 2017. So in 2017, he messaged me, said like, hey, like I'm thinking about offloading this painting. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And in my head, I was like,
that's so sick.
I do want the painting. I love it. But I also feel like just seeing him will like spark something. So like my intuition was telling me that. I don't know like what it would spark, but I was like, yeah.
There's something there.
There's something there. So I met up with him and we were talking, we were catching up because I haven't seen him since high school. And then we're like, yeah, we should jam one day because he's a drummer.
Okay.
And I didn't know like he could scream his head off and rap and stuff. He actually at the time he didn't even know he can do that too.
I understand. I can relate.
So, yeah, we met up. He gave me the painting, or I bought it off him, and we were like, yeah, we should jam. And then we had that conversation, and nothing happened for like a few weeks. And then I also met up with our drummer, who was my friend from like grade 4.
So you started with the singer.
The singer.
Then now could drum.
Yeah, the
right?
singer who can drum.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're clarifying that.
Yeah, the singer who can drum, but he's not the drummer in our band.
Okay.
Yes, good thing you clarified that. And then I met up with Julian, the drummer in our band.
The actual drummer.
And we jammed like before Christmas, and I was like, yo, this is sick. We did like Rage Against the Machine covers. We just jammed in his basement for a bit.
That's usually where it starts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the basement.
Yeah, everything starts in the basement.
It's true.
And then goes up from there. Yeah, we jammed, and then nothing happened. And then I messaged Simon, our singer, and like, hey, let's actually do those jam sessions. So I was like, yeah, okay, let's jam. So we booked the jam session at a rehearsal studio. Simon was drumming.
Okay.
So Julian, our drummer, is still out of the picture for now. So it's me, Simon, and Christian, our bassist. We're all like high school friends.
Because there's 4 of you guys, right?
Yeah, there's 4 of us.
Gotcha.
But right now there's only 3.
Okay.
And then we're like jamming, and we had a blast. We were just doing covers. We had so much fun. And Simon was like, oh, I want to like sing or something. And I was like, oh, I know a drummer, Julian, my friend. I jammed with him like over Christmas. And then long story short, we had a jam session like 2 weeks later. All 4 of us were doing covers, having so much fun. And then it's time to pack up because like you rent 2 hours at a time. Our time came to pack up. I was like, fuck, man, am I allowed to swear?
Go for it.
I
I think swearing sometimes it's not like just a bad word. It's kind of an expression that even in music, right? You're like, well, the only way I can express this is by saying fuck.
Yeah.
You know? So go ahead, go for it.
Well, as I was saying, I said, fuck, man, like this is such a blast. Like, I don't want to stop jamming. So I literally came up with a riff on the spot. It was like, dun, 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 dun. And then the drummer just like joined in. He started drumming to the riff I just made up. And then it sounded like we were playing an actual song. And then Simon and Christian were like looking at each other like, what the hell are these guys playing? Like,
I don't know that
we
one.
didn't learn this song. Like, were we supposed to learn this? And then we stopped playing, and they were like, what song is that? I was like, I don't know. We literally just made it up. And Julian just joined me. And they're like, dude, that's amazing. Like, let's record this before we pack up. So we recorded like 30 seconds of it. And I was like, we were all like listening to it afterwards. And long story short, that became our first song called Look Out. It's on our EP on Spotify.
Gotcha.
There's going to be...
We'll link it.
Yeah, okay. Sure. And we're going to re-record it better and put it on the next album.
It's that learning curve.
Exactly. We learned so much. Yeah. So yeah, Look Out was our first song. And we just started writing more songs from there. It was like so spontaneous.
It really starts kind of because I kind of write music just to write music, and some people I actually performed at a Christmas party it was just like a house party, and people were asking me like, how do you write a song? And I'm like, honestly, there's not like a,
you can't explain it.
yeah, you just, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And for me, if I'm like, I'm gonna sit down, I think I'm gonna write something today, it doesn't happen. And then for me, I get frustrated. I'm like, fuck, man, I want more, but I don't know where. And some of the days where I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna pick up the guitar for 5-10 minutes just to kind of add, a little strength to the calluses. Next thing I know, 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, okay, I got a first verse and a chorus.
Nice.
20 minutes. I'm like, I don't know how you come up with it. So we already covered the car parts, and then we covered the band. Can you walk us through like a day in a life with, what you do?
Okay.
How does that look like?
So it starts at 5 a.m.
Okay.
And I would just wake up, and my routine is like meditate in the morning and then work out and then start actual work. And to be honest, like lately I haven't been waking up at 5 a.m. It's more like 6:30, 7.
It's like,
but like I'm getting
sometimes.
back into it. But yeah, like I love waking up early. Oh yeah?
Me too.
Nice. I like watching the sunrise. That sets me up for like a really good day. And then just work, and then I'll come into the office in the evening and then help out the guys here, and yeah.
The guys here at the office, not like the studio where we're at Rajan's office.
Yeah.
Just to put context into where we kind of are located right now. So you talk about, this is a curious question. You kind of find peace in watching the sunrise.
Yeah.
Is there any other part of your day, even if it is busy or not, that brings you peace? Whether that's just like silence between your job, or is that, you're in the middle of a workout and you're just like, those 5 seconds, you're like, damn, now I feel really good. Is there any other time of the day that makes you feel that same way?
So breath work. So like that comes from like practicing meditation, which isn't easy at first, but I encourage like everyone to try meditation.
Right now.
It's perfectly fine to struggle. Like you're supposed to suck at something before you get better at it. But like sometimes I'll just pause and just do some breath work, take some deep breaths, and like I visualize energy too. So like I visualize energy coming in through my head and just
they always say it's like a spot on your head,
or even just like the top of my head.
Okay.
Coming through your head and then just spreading throughout your body. So like you breathe in and you're pulling in the energy. Okay. And it's not like woo-woo stuff. Like you actually feel it. And you'll never understand until you actually try. But yeah, meditation is really powerful. And
so how long do you meditate each day? Or do you do it every day? Like how's that schedule?
I try for every day. Or actually I've been doing a lot better and more consistent with it. So I try for like at least 10 minutes a day.
I couldn't even get through, I got through 3. I was 3 or 4 minutes, and it was in the morning, and I made the mistake of doing it in my bed. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to close my eyes. I feel like, okay, maybe I'll go back to sleep. But I'm trying.
Were you lying down?
I was sitting, and then I ended up laying down, and then I got really comfy. Oh. I'll learn how to do it eventually.
Well, I sometimes meditate in my bed, so that's not a mistake.
Sitting up or laying
sitting
down?
Up,
okay.
Sitting up.
Because I've listened to podcasts where there's a podcast I listen to. It's called The Boss Talk.
Okay.
And one of the guys on there was talking about how he meditates at night before bed. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, does that work the same? Like you're on that verge about falling asleep, but you're not. But you're supposed to be meditating, but you're also supposed to be relaxing. So I'm like, are you actually meditating if you're in bed, closing your eyes, laying down, and literally about to fall asleep? Would that be considered the same thing? Because I do know people that do it in the morning, or some people that do it in the day. But I just questions. You're not though. Rajan is my second session in person that I've done with the in-person kind of recording the podcast. But my first session with Marcelo, he actually does his meditating. I think when he gets in his car at work, he pulls up, he puts like one of those windshield shades on there. Okay. He turns his car off, and then he just has like 5 minutes of silence in his car.
That's good.
So it's just like, it's interesting to see when people meditate or how they kind of like what works for them. But yeah. Next question. What inspires you? What inspires your best ideas and concepts? And this could be like band or car related, or even just like in your own life. And
Yeah,
do
so
that.
for me, like the benchmark if I want to do something is, will this help me grow? Is this cool and innovative? And is this creative? Does it excite me? So if something is like the norm, like let's say if I wanted to go into a business and everyone's doing that business, that really turns me off. It's like, why would I do it if so many other people are
Yeah.
doing the same
Why
thing?
be ordinary when you could be
Exactly.
extraordinary?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, the benchmark and what inspires me is like, if no one's doing this, or if not a lot of people are doing this, I want to do it and try to be the best as possible at this one thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
With car parts, because you design them,
Hmm.
is it just like, oh, I think this is really cool, or is it, do you look at different cars and you're like, oh, that'd be really cool if it was like a part that was a hybrid between this car and this? I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just kind of.
That's a good question. So when it comes to thinking like what parts to make, there's a few different ways, like different ways I look at it. It's like it could be something I need,
Okay.
and maybe like other companies make the same thing. So I'll just like design it and try to improve on what other people do.
Yeah, kind of customize it to what you want. Or
Exactly. Like, oh, I like this feature, but I don't like that feature. So I'll just like put my own spin on it.
Okay.
Try to be creative. Or sometimes I'll combine the function of two parts together and make like one part that's like the
it's like
ultimate.
2-in-1 shampoo,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Shampoo,
exactly.
conditioner.
Exactly.
That
Well,
was 3-in-1.
Oh,
Shampoo,
damn.
conditioner, and body wash.
it might be controversial for some people, but like that works. That's what works for me.
Hey, whatever works for you. Same question, but for music. Do you listen to? For me, I love watching other people produce, and also kind of listening to other music that I like, but that other music that are in different genres, and kind of trying to mix them together. So I don't know if you know who John Bellion is.
No, I don't.
No.
No.
Oh, you gotta check him out, man. He's got so he produces, but he also sings, but he does a lot of collaborations with his music, and he's also helped other artists like Justin Bieber. I think he's done Halsey. There's like a ton of just big artists. Maroon 5, where he produces with them and helps them with those concepts. When you guys write, okay, I know this is kind of, we kind of just talked about this. Do you guys listen to different, like, is it inspired by the music that you listen to, or is it inspired by like your kind of just listening to random things the day to day, like just random sounds, and you're like, ooh, I could. Charlie Puth does a lot with his music. He makes a song where it's literally just the door hinge creaking,
Okay.
and then he just literally takes that concept and then builds a song around it.
That's cool.
So I was just curious, what does that look for you, or look like for you?
It's very random. Like, yes, it's a mixture of what we listen to, but it's also a mixture of like who we are, and I guess
I
it's
like
kind
that.
of
I like
influenced of that's kind of influenced by who we listen to. I don't know. It's like you're kind of asking like chicken or the egg, which came first. So like, but yeah, it's a mixture of both. And I notice like I'll go through phases and I'll listen to certain bands, and that would have an influence on my sound, like what kind of stuff I come up with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. I think this podcast was when I was kind of coming up with the ideas and what the purpose is. It's just like, what cultivates that creativity and how do you use it in different senses. Next question. Okay, well, the next question is like, what does your creative process look like? So does that start with, so once you have this idea, do you go into certain software with your car parts? And like, I know nothing about this.
Yeah, so-
Educate me.
So the creative process is it's a very random process. It could be long or it could be short. So, but the most important thing is to never force it. You can't force creativity.
Yeah, it's really tough.
So I'll use an example. I had an idea for a car part that I haven't released yet, but I kind of figured out how to do it. So I had the idea in my head and I just sat on it, and I'll just daydream from time to time about this idea. Like, oh, how can we make this work mechanically? Like, how can we get the function that we want in the space constraints that we have? And it's something that like no one's ever done before. But I kind of figured it out just by like daydreaming about it. Like, oh, maybe we could do this, but no, that'll conflict with that. Oh, so we have to take like another approach, which is fine. But yeah, you just like obsess over this one thing, and you just like chip away at it, just like you have like a block of ice,
Yeah.
and then you just
It's
slowly
like ice
chip away at
sculpture.
it, and then you have an ice sculpture. So you can't rush it. It'll take as long as it takes, but as long as you keep going, like,
Yeah, you're just
you'll
like
eventually
constantly
get there.
thinking about it. I know.
Yeah.
I could be a really creative person. And my boyfriend sometimes is there, sometimes not. He's more analytical than anything. And sometimes he's like, oh, you haven't touched the podcast, or you haven't touched your guitar, you haven't, picked anything up. So how's that going? And I think for a lot of people that aren't really as creative as people like us, or have that kind of space in their brain, it looks like we're not doing anything, but it's just like we're actually sitting and thinking, and there's not really, in the sense of kind of how the world works, there's not really like much of a deadline to creativity.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like 2 a.m. and you're like, okay, I think this works, and that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting. For the band, with that, is it just like you guys record that one clip, or you guys kind of just like sit down and kind of throw darts at the wall, and if it lands right on the bullseye, that's kind of what you go with? Or how does that look for you guys?
So there's two ways where we write music. One way is like I'll come up with the riffs while I'm just messing around in my bedroom, and I'll send them to the group chat.
Okay.
And our singer will like come up with lyrics on top of them.
Okay.
And
that's really cool.
That's a cool way we do it. Another way is we'll be practicing, and we'll just spontaneously come up with something somehow. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does work, it's just magic, and we instantly start recording. Like, we can't lose this.
It's I think the cool part is it's that stuff that it's almost like in a relationship. When I used to get a lot of older people that I volunteered with, was like I was looking for relationship advice at like 16, 17 years old. And I was thinking, like, for me, I've always, like, the dating scene's been, if I'm going to date you, it's going to be for a long time, and the thought of I'll probably end up, like, marrying you, or, like, more long-term than anything. And I remember asking old people, like, what is your advice? Like, how do you know when you found the right person? And they would just say, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that literally doesn't give me any metrics of how to kind of measure this, or how to deem this, or see that it is kind of being successful. And I think that same kind of concept with music or creativity, sometimes it's like you have something and there's not metrics to be like, this is going to be successful or this is going to be great. It's just like, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Now kind of for the people to get to know you and a little bit more of the sound of your band, what type of music do you listen to, and like who are your top 3 favorite all-time artists?
So top 3 I would say is Rage Against the Machine.
And number 1, rank them.
Okay, rank. Okay, let's say right now Rage Against the Machine is 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah, but it's always in the top 3. It fluctuates.
Gotcha.
Number 1 right now is this. They're not as big as Rage, but I really love their sound. They're called Valley of the Sun.
Okay.
They're very hard rock but melodic. So like they have a great energy, but they're very melodic. So it just hits you differently. I just love their sound, and it's very meaningful music.
Okay, you got one more artist.
And
who are you gonna fill the spot?
Third is Soundgarden.
Okay.
Yeah. So I love 90s rock, and Soundgarden is just my favorite grunge band. They're just so hard but also melodic and very abstract, and I love them.
I think it's because I'm more of on like the pop side. For me, it's like Lauv, Bozzy, a little bit of John Belly, and Justin Bieber. That's where my music takes
Okay.
it. So you can call me like a 12-year-old girl, basically. But I think it's interesting because even though I don't like your type of music, you and my boyfriend, as we talked about off air, have the same type of sounds like that.
Nice.
And for me, it's when I try to understand it. And when he plays his music in the car, I try to understand, like, just because I don't like it, like, what is so amazing, and what is so, like, what draws you to their music and their sound, so that I can understand how this is so great.
Yeah.
Kind of like there's like in a lot of rock, there's a lot of riffs, and like, or I know this isn't really rock, but like in Purple Rain, you know how there's that by Prince, there's like that kind of that really long riff that goes on for like 2 or 3 minutes. You know, Purple Rain.
I've listened to it, but I don't know the riff you're talking about.
It's like it's long.
Okay.
But there's a lot of like electric guitar in that. And for some people, like that's what really draws them to the music is like you could just feel that vibe. And so I like to even though it's not my thing, I like to not loved. I still do kind of listen for whatever you think is cool. For Rage Against the Machine, I know it's really that rage and that metal, and you could feel kind of the emotion in that voice. And some people, at first, for me, I just thought like this dude just screaming, and too many Red Bulls, and here he is, you know. But I think it's really cool, and I love to ask people like what draws them to certain things.
I see.
Our next question, I saw that for your band, you guys opened for the Veer Union. And also New Year's Day. How was that?
That was a really cool experience. So
explain this experience so we could feel like how you did.
Yeah, so we came out of one gig. We played at Bovine in Toronto. Okay. And then the next day, I woke up to a message on Facebook. Someone messaged our band page. And she was like, hey, I heard of your band. We have an opening slot for the Veer Union. Are you guys interested? Let me know. And I had to like rub my eyes up because I was like, what is this the Veer Union that I listened in high school? Because I actually listened to the Veer Union in high school, and
they reached out to you.
Yeah, they reached out to us. So somehow someone at the show we played a couple days ago liked us and recommended us to this one concert agency, and we got the gig that way, and it was cool. Like. Preparing for that gig was different. Like they're opening for a professional band. There's a few things that you have to do differently. Like you have to prepare a tech rider, which is kind of like
enlighten us. I have no idea what that means.
It's basically a plot of like where everyone in the band is on the stage.
Okay.
So like you need to be like, oh, the guitarist is there, bass is there, our drummer needs these many toms, because they want to have like seamless transitions between bands.
Okay.
So like that's something we've never done. That makes sense. Yeah.
That makes sense. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I'm sure if you're like playing a stadium, there's so much other stuff, but like there was like a few other things, just like business logistics stuff that we had to take care of opening for a touring band. But it was a cool experience, and I got to talk to the Veer Union after. They liked us.
That's crazy.
What was cool is like as we were playing, we saw the singer. He was like on the side of the mosh pit, like bobbing his head. I was like, "Oh shit, they like us." Like, that's pretty cool.
That's insane.
That was pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I go to a lot of concerts. I'm almost always on like SeatGeek or Ticketmaster, whoever I can hop into their show or like go see them. Mm-hmm. I think kind of living where I was in the States, like we're not near the next big city is New Orleans, and even then. We kind of get skipped over. Like then the next possible city you could go to is either like Houston, Atlanta, or Orlando. Oh, I see. Which is like Atlanta's like another 5, maybe 6 if you're a slow driver hours away, and then everything else is like it's like 7-8 hours with traffic. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think I really went through a phase of like just being entertained. But I think it's cool now being in Toronto. There's so many shows. I'm like, okay, how like now I'm at the point where I used to be like, I have to be front row. I have to be here. Yeah. Some artists, it's like you have to be front row, like ride or die. You have to be like for Rage Against the Machine. I'm assuming you're at the front row.
Yeah, well, I tried to go to the front row. The closest I could get. If it's GA. Yeah, I was in GA, so I overpaid for GA tickets because like when else am I gonna get a chance to see Rage Against the Machine? So I paid the scalper's fee, and then I had a blast. I tried to get to the front row, but the closest I could get is like 3 people away from this.
That's okay. I mean, that's still good. You could be all the way in the back.
Yeah, but most of the time I was in the pit, and I was like getting messed up.
with alcohol, or just like
No,
physically?
physically
Okay,
messed up.
okay.
Like I walked
Because
out.
it could be both.
So the third song, I lost my glasses.
Okay.
Someone knocked my glasses off my face, and I was like, I don't give a shit. Like I'm at a Rage Against the Machine show, so like that didn't even
They were just
phase
blurry.
me. It was just blurry, but like as long as I could see the person that I'm aiming at in the mosh pit. No, I'm just joking, but like, yeah, it was awesome, and
Oh,
I walked
man.
out of there shirt drenched, bruises on all four limbs, and it was a blast. Like I look back on that, and sometimes to hype myself before a workout, I'll watch videos from that show or other Rage Against the Machine shows, and just
Music
hypes
is
me up.
powerful.
Music is powerful. Music is a drug. Like if you try working out with music versus without music, you go so much farther with music.
I literally, when I pull up to Good Life, if I forget my AirPods, I'm like, I'm driving the 12
Oh
minute
wow,
back.
wow. But also, if you want to build mental strength, it's better to work out
Yeah,
without
it's true.
music. So,
Actually, I know a girl, not girl, woman. Shout out to Wendy. She, for the most part, works out. Her deadlift's like 405,
wow.
and she's like my stature.
Mhm.
I'm probably like 5'1", 5'2", and sometimes she hits her PRs without music. Like
Nice.
it's just the crappy like whatever they play at the
Oh,
gym,
yeah.
you know, and it's just like a commercial gym. So sometimes you're like hitting your max. So like good girls don't cry, or big girls don't cry.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, that. It really does take a lot of mental practice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Next question: what is your definition of success? And when/what goals do you have to hit in order to consider yourself as successful? Like we're talking more of the future,
Yeah.
right?
So, I think first of all, it's very important to know what you want to accomplish.
Okay.
And if you don't know what it is, you need to find out by trying different things and find yourself. So that's what I did throughout my 20s.
Yeah, get lost and then
You
you'll
get
find
lost
yourself
and find yourself.
eventually.
Do like a lot of things that scare you and just try different stuff. So like what I found was my definition of success would be I've always wanted to create a business that impacts people in a positive way. And of course there's like financial aspects to it, but creating a business that helps a lot of people, I think the financial is secondary. So like if you focus more on like helping other people, the finances will
comes
come.
eventually.
It comes, whatever. And I have helped people. Like I have people working with me, and we're putting food on families' tables, which is great. But I want to chase like more. So I'm working on a new startup with other guys, and hopefully that will provide, and that will hit those targets that I want to reach. And another definition of success for me is just being creative and like creating a lot of cool stuff in the world that no one else has made. So those are the two things I want to accomplish, and I'd say I'm on track to it, helping other people and just being creative. And yeah, we'll see how this journey goes.
I can definitely tell. When I sit down and or even just like watch on YouTube some of my favorite people that are in the creative space, I feel like a lot of not our generation, but like society now, or even for me growing up, it was here's the box and this is where you're at, you know, and it's just like for a lot of creators, it's hard. There's not really a school to be creative. Sometimes
No.
it just happens.
You find your own way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I love for this podcast for it to showcase that, my brother and I, well, more my brother, it's like, you know, when people are like, oh, what do you do for a living? Right. Or just like, what is your elevator pitch? Or when you're in an Uber, it's like, what do you do? When there's a lot going on and you're like creative and trying to kind of make something of that creativity, it's there's not really a job description, and there's not really like a set way to say what you do, because sometimes it's a lot more than that. And I always thought, even growing up or just even before I kind of started my path on the podcast and what I want to do, it's like I thought you could only be one thing. But as I'm listening to other podcasters and, you know, also just doing random research on the internet and or just like creative research, most of those people, there's really not like there's not a way to describe it, and you kind of just do what you do. And it's hard whenever you try to tell someone where their mindset is, this is the box, or you're like, oh, I'm a creative director or something, and it's like, oh, what does that mean? Because for them it's just like, how can you make something by being creative? But for us it's like, you can make anything by being creative. And I think that's really cool, and I love that we were able to sit down and kind of talk about that. One last random question that we didn't have on here. What is like your biggest fear, in the sense of, like, for me, it used to be swimming with the sharks. And like, because I grew up swimming, and then Josh, my older brother, as you know, by the way, Rajan is my god brother. That's how we know each other. Josh would tell me like, oh, there's a shark in the deep end. If you don't swim fast, like, the shark's gonna eat you. And man, even at like 4 years old, that scarred me for the rest of my life. And I had been at different pools or different places, and back in 2020, I think it was 2021, my boyfriend and I actually, because I was like, I had gone through a lot of things in my story, I'm not going to get into it, where it was like, I knew that if I could overcome my biggest fear, at least the childhood one, like the shark thing, that I could kind of move forward. And it was just like, okay, whenever something else scary happens, it's just like, okay, well, we got through the biggest one, so we can get through this one. And so my boyfriend and I, we went to snorkel in the Georgia Aquarium, and there's like whale sharks, but there's also like black tip reef sharks. Nice. I could show you the pictures. Yeah. It doesn't just have to be that. It could be like a relationship thing, or it could be whatever. Like, what's your biggest fear? What scares you? What
scares me is going into a room of people way smarter than me. Okay. And holding a conversation with them.
I can see. I never really thought about that, but yeah, that is very.
Yeah, that scares me. That intimidates me, and something that I've been telling myself, and I'm sure I have other fears that I can't think of at the moment, but something I heard in the book The War of Art, which Nicholas, my cousin Nicholas, he recommended to me, and Joe Rogan and a lot of other people talk about it, and I love it. It's my favorite book. Is if something scares you, that's an indicator that's what you should do to grow. Oh,
I've heard. I think I've heard. Okay, I've heard of this quote or this kind of concept. Yeah. I think I know what book you're talking about. I've heard about that in a lot of other podcasts. Yeah. But I think it's true. I think for me, for example, like, I've been in that place where I'm like, I'm kind of scared to do something, or it's just like, in my first podcast, the sit down that I did with Marcelo, before we met up, I was really nervous and I was almost scared. But I'm like, if I'm scared, I think I should follow that. Yeah. Because sometimes the greatness is on the other side of that. Exactly. Right. Yeah. And I've been listening to a lot of like John Bellion. They're making of whatever song or album, and he talks about like, when it comes to creativity, kind of that collaboration, it's like greatness is on the other side, where everybody is really at the peak of their either creative, like, kind of mind, or creative talents, or just even like vocal talents. And it's just like, you just have to keep pushing to just a little bit, very close to that limitation line. And that's where it all comes together, and that's where the magic happens. Have you ever been in that situation where you were in a room, or even just like, not a room filled, but like in a space where you knew a lot of other people knew more than you did?
Yeah, I have. Like, I've had, for a previous job, sales calls in an industry that I didn't know much about. Luckily, I had a partner beside me in the sales call who took up most of the brunt work. But yeah, I felt like so out of my element. I felt like an idiot, but like, I grew from that experience. And yeah.
So how did you grow from that? I'm just curious.
Just more courage and being okay with looking like an idiot. You have to be okay with that and still like push through and just learn and evolve, so that next time you look like less of an idiot.
I think it's true too. Like, a lot of people ask, like when they're starting at the gym, right? It's like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what a barbell is. I don't know how to rack it. I don't know how to, I don't know how to properly deadlift. I don't know how to use these machines. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, you just gotta go in and fucking do it, you
Exactly.
know? Um, that was really interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that like as a fear, because most people it's like, oh, I'm scared of heights, or I don't do well with whatever public speaking, and I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Kind of now we're going into our closing questions. Death is inevitable. When you're gone, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who accomplished whatever he wanted to do and at the same time helped other people accomplish what they want to do. Because I really think anyone anyone can accomplish whatever they want as long as they put their mind to it and
Actually,
just
do it.
actually do it and not be deterred by obstacles or fears. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people, whether it's from not just my small town, but people that you meet in college, and or just people along the way in life, where they're like, oh, it'd be really cool to start this, or this would be a cool idea, but then it just stays in the back burner of their brain as an
Yeah.
idea, rather than like a priority or something that they could do to not just excel themselves but also grow and help other people. So I really admire this startup business, this the car part business, and also with the band, because it's just like I think it's really interesting too, because obviously I'm now just starting off with the podcast, and like my guests are also kind of still in, like, have started. That's my thing for guests. It's just, if I reach out to you, there's something that I see creatively or like in the mindset where you understand the same thing of being mindful of what you do, being intentional, being creative, and like being intentional with that creativity. And that's what's going to push you forward. Like, you might not be where you want to be in the way of like yet, as in being successful, but like if you follow doing those things that make you successful, as in some people like meditate, some people journal, like really kind of growing yourself every day to be a better version of yourself. Because you may look back even in a month, right, if you start working out, or you look back in a year, or whatever time frame, and you look back and you're like, man, I don't even recognize the person that I was. Or like, I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, it's crazy. Like it's interesting for me, because I had just been going to, like, I would work on Saturdays, and then that was my day. And I woke up late today, but at some point I had a split second in the mirror where I was like, I'm going to go record in person a podcast episode, where I remember weeks prior, I was just like ideas of like, well, I could get Rajan on the podcast. I think that would be sick. And yeah, I'll drive the hour and 30 minutes it gets it, like, but I always thought like that'd be so cool if those were my plans. And I looked myself in the mirror today, I was like, those are my plans. Like those ideas and those dreams are like slowly becoming reality. And I think a lot of people think like it takes you gotta have the best equipment, you gotta have the best camera, you gotta have the best guitar to record this, you gotta have the best studio. But it's like if you just start,
exactly,
that's what will bring you forward. Last question. Any advice for, I know this is kind of a broader question, but any advice for people that want to start doing what you're doing, whether it's starting a business or kind of chasing those dreams, or just in general, music? What's your advice?
So first advice is to find out what you want. Don't chase what someone else has just because you think that might be what you want. You have to like realize what you want on a deep level, and that'll set your course. So like that's your North Star. That's where you want to end up. Like if you want to become like a YouTuber, that's your North Star. So you're going to chase that. And then you have to just start doing stuff that will get you there. So, and like it won't always get you there overnight, or usually won't, but you just have to keep going in that direction. You have to just keep walking towards the North Star, and just keep working, keep your head down, and just keep doing stuff. You'll grow, and eventually you'll get there. Like an analogy I like to say is like, let's say if you're in New York and you want to get to Los Angeles on foot. And oh man, that's such a hard journey, but like it's still possible. All you have to do is literally just walk in that direction.
That's
and
true.
it sounds like really dumb, but like chasing your dreams is like
No,
really
but it's
hard.
like it's true because like some people are like, oh well, how do I get to LA from New York? And then they'll spend all of this time in New York just like walking in circles rather
Yeah.
than actually just heading west.
Or they'll like print out the turn by turn directions. Like you don't have to do that. You just walk west.
Yeah.
Just keep walking west and eventually you'll get to where you want to be.
That's
so as
true.
long as you don't like give up along the way, like you don't stop in Colorado and be like, oh, I'll settle for this. You just keep walking.
There's I was listening to the same podcast, Boss Talk. One of the guys on there said it's the things that you spend the most time, all of your time doing is what you become. So if you're like that person that just like is that like that meme of that, I think it's like a monkey and he's like he has his hands out, he's like this. You know, like he's just kind of looks like he's juggling a little bit. It's like if you spend all your time doing that, or if you spend your time playing video games, or if you spend your time, a lot of your time high, like that's what you become.
Yeah.
But if you spend your time working on yourself, building your business, building your passions, and, you know, just following with whatever you want to do, like eventually, if you just keep at it, that's what you'll become. It's not going to be easy. And I think now everybody's just like thinks that, oh, I could do this and it'll blow up, but it's like
No.
there's a lot more to it.
And you'll see that like a lot of overnight successes are behind the scenes actually like a 10-year success story.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I go ahead.
Another thing I wanted to say is like there's two ways you could spend your time. You could either be creative or you could consume stuff. So like, do you want to be a consumer or do you want to be a creator?
You know, there's a good book you should check out. I just finished it. It's called The 5 a.m. Club.
Okay.
By Robin Sharma. And one of my favorite quotes that I actually put up on my vision board for this year was he was talking about like dopamine, being distracted, whether that's emails and things you have to do or just like watching YouTube or movies all the time. But he says that like victims, as he calls them, victims of entertainment have big TVs, and this is not about financials. It's about the self growth. It's that concept. So yeah, victims of entertainment want to be entertained, so they have big TVs. They spend a lot of time on social media. They spend a lot of time, whatever they're doing and consuming. But I think the word he used was leaders have big libraries, and I think that's a lot different because people think like, oh, well, I'm watching this YouTube video to learn how to cook. And it's like, okay, then why are you watching now? Why are you watching giraffes giving birth?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you fall into that realm, or like I come in looking for this and like next thing I know, I'm like, how am I watching? Like,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And it's just like, yeah, you're learning of it. And like I've been a victim. I think we've all been a victim, but it's just like, next thing you know, you come in looking for that. Next thing you know, you're looking at things that are related because that's what the algorithm brings you.
Yeah.
But then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to learn how to make Mongolian beef. But next thing I know, I'm learning about how to make sushi. Next thing I know, I'm learning how to make, you know, like rice. And it's just like, yeah, it's all related, but that's not the goal and that's not the vision. And now I've spent 20 minutes of my time watching these videos. Not that they're not educational, but I've been distracted.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Also, I'm not saying that you should only be creative. Time consuming stuff is important because that can turn into inspiration
It's true.
for stuff. But you should be aware of not consuming too much, and you should spend more time creating.
Do you
and
have
just honing your skills?
Sorry. Do you have an iPhone? Are you an iPhone person?
No,
Are you-
Samsung.
For me, it's on iPhone when it's like you get a notification of like your screen time. I bet Android has that.
It does.
It does.
Like, it has a weekly report.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have that as well, and it's just like, damn, I spent 4 hours this week on Instagram. Dude, I remember some days it was like, and sometimes it is just where you are mentally, right? Like Esther and I talk about whenever you're not in the greatest mentality or like you're just mentally like not doing well. For me, like my laundry's like stacked up. For me, it's my car, like there's just Tim Hortons or Starbucks. There's just like wrappers, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything where when you were in your bad or not in the right mental place or had a bad mental health that had happened to you? Where it was just like something was either messy or like you were behind on stuff?
Yeah, I've had times in my life where things were not great and stuff was piling up, and I was like, it felt like the walls were closing in on me, and it
I
was
can relate.
important. Yeah, it was important to like really ground yourself and just do one thing at a time. You just have to put one foot in front of the other. Actually, I have a story that kind of relates.
Sure.
I was at Banff National Park.
Okay.
I was there in June, and I was hiking up a mountain. Because it's June, I just wore shorts and like hiking shoes, not hiking boots, like Nike hiking shoes,
Okay.
and a sweater. And I went up this trail, and I got to this one tea house. It's the famous tea house that everyone hears about in Banff. It's like on top of the mountain. They sell like coffee and cakes and stuff. I got there, and it was great, but like there was a higher section of the trail that I wanted to get to. And so I went around the lake, and I got to this one steep part. It was steeper than 45 degrees.
Dang.
And in some parts the snow was like deeper than my whole leg. Like if you fell through, like my whole leg went through the snow.
Wet socks.
So I was like, okay, I really want to get up there, but I don't know if it's safe because it's like all snow and I'm in shorts and Nike hiking shoes and a sweater. So I got to the bottom of that last climb, and I asked this one girl who was chilling there. I was like, oh, have you ever been up there? Because I was like kind of nervous. So I asked her for like confirmation that, oh yeah, it's definitely okay to go up. But her answer was like, oh, I haven't been up there. I didn't bring my crampons, so it's not safe. So that triggered something in my head. I always have this mentality that if someone says it's not possible, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's like one of my biggest drivers. Like haters or doubters are like my biggest driver. I'm like, fuck you. I guess,
really.
Fuck you, I'm going to prove you wrong. It's like, I grew up listening to a lot of punk in high school. So like, that's kind of the attitude.
Yeah,
like,
that
you're wrong. I can do this. So like I started going up it, and it was crazy. Like it was the hardest climb I've ever done in my whole life. Like I had to like use all four limbs. I had no gloves with me, so like my hands were getting frostbite. And I was like, I actually thought I could have like seriously injured myself.
Yeah, because
So,
you're
like,
in shorts.
Yeah, I was in shorts. I was so cold. Like it's the worst frostbite I've ever had. So I looked back. I was like, maybe I'll just go back. But it looked super sketchy because like it was all bumpy and steep. And I was so scared that if I fell, I would have like slid down the mountain. And what's trippy was that before I got there, I saw someone else slide down the mountain, and she slid all the way down to like a frozen lake. So I was like replaying that in my head. I was like, oh damn, I can't go back down. I have to go up. But like I'm looking up, it's like it seemed like an impossible task, like standing at the near the base, but it's such an impossible task.
Yeah.
But the one lesson that I learned was you just have to keep going. You don't want to like always look at your end goal. I had a baseball cap, and the baseball cap shielded me from like looking at the top.
Okay.
Because like looking at like the entire journey, that will psych you out.
It
The
really,
most important thing to focus on is like the next few steps. So because I had a baseball cap, I couldn't see the top. I could only see the few steps in front of me. So I just like, okay, I can make these few steps. Okay, I made these few steps. I can make the next few steps.
Keep
You
going.
just keep going. Keep your head down. Keep going. And you'll get there. And I did get to the top.
Okay, I was going to say, you
I
can't
did get to the
finish,
top.
can't finish the story.
And I felt like so alive. Like the view was so beautiful once I got there, and so rewarding. It was like the best feeling ever. So I took the lessons from that, and I just apply that to everyday life. Like don't look at the entire journey. Yeah, be mindful of it, but don't hyper focus on it. Don't let it psych you out. Just focus on the next few steps that you have to take.
So, how many feet would you say that was all like up there?
I'm sorry, I'm Canadian. I speak in meters.
Sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know, like,
I'm a hybrid.
I would say like, I don't know. It could be 100 meters.
So, like, how do you get down?
So I went. You could go down. You could descend there, but like it's super sketchy. So I just went down the other side. There's a
So,
shallower
okay.
trail. Yeah, you can go.
Okay.
You can access it from another side.
Okay.
If people are curious what that trail is called, it's called the Big Beehive Trail at Banff National Park. It's so beautiful.
I was just like, I always wonder, because, like, you know, you see these people climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
I may have butchered that. Or, like, even Everest. It's
Yeah.
like, once you get up, like, how do you get down? Like, I guess you just... It's a simple answer. Like, you go down.
Yeah, you just go down the same way. But luckily for me, there was another trail going down. It wasn't as sketchy.
My boyfriend and I, we went with my parents to Stone Mountain, and it's just like a little bit outside of Atlanta. And we went up, and it's like, it's just really rocky. Not like you can, like, a boulder type of thing, but it felt like, imagine the mountain itself, in my opinion, it's like the moon.
Wow.
Like, there's a lot of craters at the top, but going up, we were like, oh yeah, this is like, you know, we thought it was, I would say like a 6-7 hard difficulty. Yeah. But coming down, man, that's like a 10 or 11.
Wow. That's crazy.
And so sometimes it like, I remember John and I, we were like, okay, we're going to get up there. And it was kind of tough. You get a little cardio out of it. But coming down, I was like, that's not what I expected at all. But for once you get to the top, there's that option to go down. Or you can just take the little, what's it called? Like, there's like a little cart or like I can't remember. It's like, what are those things called?
Cable car?
A cable car. Yeah.
Okay.
And my boyfriend's scared of heights, so we just all the way down.
Oh, damn.
Do I regret it? No, not really, but my knees did.
Oh, damn.
It was one of those. But we went, it was that same trip as when we went to the Georgia Aquarium to do that snorkeling. We went in like September. It was Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
So for like still down south, it was still pretty hot.
Damn.
So that was fun.
Nice.
And we only brought half a water bottle.
Oh, that's a big
for
mistake.
The two of us.
That's a big mistake.
So it's just like, water. And you get up there and all they sell is popcorn. Like there's there's popcorn and slushies.
So they sell you stuff that makes you more thirsty.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But it was like, you take the lessons out of, sometimes in hardships and stuff like that, it's like taking the experience. Like, it was tough, but what can I learn from it?
Exactly. There's a lesson in everything.
There really is. If you look for it, and that's your perspective, because some people will think like, oh, I hit a hardship and like, fuck, I'm at the bottom. Like this is gonna ruin my whole life. And if you're in that mentality, or you're just like, okay, great. I'm gonna try to make this story short. My friend and I, Sage, we went to the Canadian. David Foster was there. I don't know if you know who he is.
No,
He's like a really big producer, like Michael Bublé, Celine Dion.
Nice.
It was like this award show. They were getting inducted to the Canadian Songwriters Award. Nice. Yeah. And I went because JP Sachs was supposed to be there. I think he's from like Kingston. So he's like, if the world was ending, you come over, right? You know him? No?
I've heard of his name, but
he's from around here. And he was supposed to be there. One of my favorite people. Probably one of my top 5 for sure.
Nice.
Went there. He performed for like 2 minutes, and the seats that we had were like all the way at the top, so we couldn't even see him on the stage.
Oh wow.
And the thing was like 3.5 hours long.
Oh snap.
And some of it's a Canadian thing, so half of it was in English, half of it was in French, so everything everything that they said was in English, and if you're like, fuck, that was so long, they had to repeat it in French.
Snap. Wow.
And I was sitting next to Sage. I was like, yo, I'm hungry.
Oh, snap.
And it was like kind of cold, kind of wet that day. And we already like ran in heels down over there from the Eaton Center down. And I remember like I sat there and Sage was like having a great time. I'm like, what is she getting out of this experience that I'm not? You know, I'm just like, yo, you want to get sushi? Like, get toasted sushi? And she's like, we're going to finish this. I was like, we're an hour in and it's like 3 hours long snap. And I'm hungry, man. And she's just like, just sit and listen to the music and listen to like all the stuff. And I remember it like, I was trying to think, like, what is she seeing? What, and even with your type of music and what John listens to, I'm like, what are they seeing in this that I'm not seeing? It might not be my thing, but at least it's an experience that I'm exposed to now. So I never regret when I have, like, when I get, or even when I'm driving, when I get lost or anything like that. It's just like, I want to make sure that I am always trying to find the story, or what's the lesson learned, even though it may not be the best experience, but how can I grow from this? But we're at the end, but thank you so much for your time, Rajan.
No problem.
This will be posted on Spotify, Apple Music, and also on YouTube, so I will link all of your stuff out there.
Awesome.
And go check out the album. Go check out, if you need a custom car part and you're in Toronto.
Well, most of our customers are actually in the States.
Never mind.
So. If you're anywhere except for Mars,
you can get something.
Yeah.
E-commerce, online business.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
no problem, Mackenzie.
We're clocking out.
All right. See you guys.
Hey guys, I just want to hop on here real quick while I'm editing. As a reminder, don't forget to stay mindful, because being mindful can help build the best version of yourself. And also, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening in and supporting me on this podcasting journey. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe on whichever platform you're using. It really helps us grow our community, and I am super excited to start this journey, and I will catch you in the next one.